I'm reading this correctly, it might seem like our boy Double G may be out here to our rescue. That's according to which side of this you're viewing it on and what you may consider a rescue or not. But recently, some business owners, particularly the members club owners, had a bit of worry about the announced policy of the Prime Minister, where he had the safe zones and only vaccinated people would be allowed to enter certain zones, etc., etc. And certain clubs would be worried about how exactly that would be enforced, because they were expecting that the police would be running up in their clubs or doing spot checks at businesses to see exactly how this would be done. And I was thinking about that too. Okay, you're saying that businesses need to only have vaccinated vaccinated people in their compound, and they cannot allow unvaccinated people. But how exactly would that be enforced? Who is going to enforce that? The expectation, I guess, of most people was that it was going to be the police. But it seems like our boy Double G is saying no. He is saying that there isn't really any law for the police to enforce there. And the police are there to enforce laws, and if there isn't a law to enforce, they're not going to enforce it. Now, for people who were on the side of more liberty and freedom, like me, in this idea, and seeing that the science backing some of these decisions isn't quite there yet, and allowing governments this level of authority isn't a wise thing, well, to people like us, this seems like a good thing. It seems like Gary Griffith does not have the intention of holding on to that policy and executing it the way the government intends, at least not in the moment. It will be interesting to see this as it develops, because of course this is not how this is going to end. And speaking of end, also Gary Griffith himself may be soon coming to an end at his tenure. He took some leave, and there seems to be quite a lot of bacchanal with this whole selection of commissioner of police. You know, when I watch the amount of bacchanal that always envelops the selection of our commissioners of police, and I'm considering these are the people that are leading the police service in our country. These are the people that we would hope are paragons of virtue. I would hope the leader of the group of people in our country that we allow to have guns and walk around and basically boss everyone else around, I would hope that they have some morality and they have some integrity. But when you see the kind of actions that happens and the underhand deals and the underhand investigation, it's like you have to look back and really consider the TTPS and really consider the police service. And to me, I think the police service themselves would need to take a look at how that looks and how that shines on them. The more you get a view inside of the police service, it seems like many of the men in there have really large egos, and well, that, I guess that's not really a surprise to many people. If you've dealt with police officers, that seems like the aura you get very often. Anyway, Gary Griffith himself is in a bit of hot waters with that, and there's an investigation now being opened watching how he handled giving out the firearm users licenses in Trinidad and Tobago. They found that it seems like he was too liberal with giving it out, and there's accusation that a racket is being run there. Personally, as far as I know, I am 30 years old. I'd say it, I'm 30. And as long as I've been alive, I've been hearing about rackets inside the police service, especially when it comes to firearm users' licenses. That's nothing new. So I find the new focus on it does have a bit of suspicion, especially with the timing of it all. For it to all be a coincidence that at this exact moment, when they're looking to renew his contract or find a new commissioner, this is when all of this comes out. It's very convenient. Now, that's not to say it is not true. For all you know, it may very well be true. And I guess if it is true, then it's a good thing that it comes out at this very moment, so that we wouldn't have a corrupt official leading our police service. But before we dive into exactly how Double G is coming to everyone's rescue again, I'd like to point out that I am very much aware that in terms of legal grounds, some of this does have legal grounds. And especially if you look at how some societies are formed, a lot of Trinidadians look over in the United States and they assume that our legal system is around what you hear about in the United States. But that's not what our legal system is based on. Our legal system is based closer to England. And if you'd like to see what that is capable of during a pandemic, go look at Australia and see how far some of their measures go. And bear in mind that our legal system actually may be capable of doing some of that. And it may still be legal. And with that understanding, you could understand there's some perspective to be had. So, okay, personally, I don't think it's a good idea. But with the perspective, I could understand that it isn't something that is only unique to Trinidad, and it isn't something that our politicians in Trinidad are uniquely evil for trying to push onto the citizens of the country. It's a discussion to be had, because if you look across the Caribbean, Jamaica has some serious measures going on right now. In Barbados, they have their serious measures going on right now. In Guyana, you need your vaccination papers to enter every public building. That's Guyana. But the problem that I'm having where I am at, the discussion I'm looking to have, is something I saw over in Jamaica. One of their union leaders, he came out and he phrased it pretty good as far as I could see. Let's go to that article first. Before we dive into that, if you haven't clicked the like button yet, please do click that like button. No, tap that like button. Click is such an old term. That's from our old school time. Mouses are kind of obsolete. Most likely it's on a touchscreen. So yes, touch that like button right here. I'll give 2 seconds to do that. 1, 2, great. The like button is tapped. If you have a comment, please do drop that comment. I do enjoy seeing the opinions on everything, even when and if they disagree, probably especially when and if they disagree. And do share the videos. I don't say that often, but share them. If you know someone who would like the content, who would like to see these videos, who would like this kind of content, someone who is saying that why doesn't Trinidad have this style of content, this style of commentary? Well, show them this, see if they like it. Let's get into this. From the Jamaica Observer, we don't need to manufacture a crisis. Veteran trade unionists wants meeting to end worker abuse over vaccination. The Union of Clerical, Administrative and Supervisory Employees adamant that the government has stood by while dozens of workers have been ousted from their jobs because they refuse to be COVID-19 vaccinated. Is calling, wow, that is quite a sentence. So all of that, they are adamant of that, and that union is calling for the government to sit with unions and Jamaica Employers Federation to stop what it says is abuse. Now, where he was coming from was in response in particular to something one of the lawyers over in Jamaica said. He said that there isn't really anything in the law books, there isn't any legal precedence to show that this mandatory vaccination cannot be implemented. But what this union leader was attempting to say was that this isn't the time to talk about whether it's legal or not. There are some new things going on here, and what you need to understand is the Constitution isn't made to be, as it were, separate from the people. The people are still there. And if you have enough people that are being harmed by something that is in the Constitution and they do not want to live under it, you are going to end up with problems. And we are seeing some societies seem to be stretching at their seams. If you look over in France, if you look over again in Australia, you're seeing some of them seeming to be stretching at their seams with trying to handle the legality of some of the moves they are making. Yes, they may be legal. Yes, the government may come together and make this decision. But can it be backed up by the popular support of the country? And if you cannot have the popular support of the country, then what sense and what difference does it make whether it's legal or not? That's the way I see it, and that's the way that union leader over in Jamaica saw it. And now let's get to Mr. Griffith. Griffith dismisses members' clubs' fears about possible police checks. Owners and managers of members' clubs believe that fines and police spot checks may form part of the new normal for the reopening of the entertainment sector for vaccinated people. They say it appears that patrons of members' clubs, including casinos and restaurants, may have to present their vaccination cards and ID for police spot checks once those facilities reopen for in-house service. Now, you could understand with members' clubs why they may be worried if they have to check everyone's ID. However, Acting Police Commissioner Gary Griffith said there's no law to allow for that. On Friday, Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley outlined plans for a gradual reopening of the entertainment sector, including casinos, bars, restaurants, and gyms. The Prime Minister said that the sector would reopen in October once there was a continuation of the increased vaccination figures. According to the information received, police will be checking everyone must have in their possession the vaccination cards and their ID. And that was the assumption, I guess, of most of the country. And I mean, especially how the Prime Minister suggested it. That would have been the assumption that everyone would have gone out with. That what the Prime Minister said was law and it would have been enforceable by the police. But in truth and in fact, the way our country functions, what the Prime Minister says is not law. That's how kingdoms function. That's how empires function. That's how the Saudi Arabian Emirates function. They have one supreme leader, and what he says goes. He dictates as it goes. They rule by dictates, but we aren't supposed to be ruled by dictates. We are supposed to be ruled by laws that require cooperation from representatives of the entire society. And if there isn't that cooperation, then these laws would not be worthwhile. These laws would not be followable. So in this sense, I really understand where Mr. Griffith is coming from. Griffith rubbished the claim saying that there was no legislation allowing police to spot check patrons. Police cannot enforce a law that is not there, he said yesterday. There is no state or government policy that mandates that persons would be debarred from entering any private or public space if they are vaccinated or not, he said. If we do not have the authority to do it in a public space, we definitely would not be able to enforce it in a private space, he said. If it is your private property and you want to only allow vaccinated people onto the premises, that is your policy. The police have nothing to do with that, Griffith said. There's absolutely nothing to give the police any such authorization in any private establishment to be able to check for vaccination cards, he said. Griffith said that even if an unvaccinated person wanted to enter the premises after the policy for vaccinated only was in place, that was the job for the company's private security. Officers are not bouncers for these private places. The only time police would intervene is if a law is being broken, if someone is being abusive, he said. And again, I understand the logic behind that. Now, I don't know personally if before the Prime Minister said that, if he saw to it that there are legal provisions in place to make this a binding legal proclamation. I don't know that to be a fact. But it seems like neither does the police commissioner. He doesn't seem to know that this is a law either. So up until there's some kind of policy that is officially passed in Parliament, it seems like our commissioner will not be enforcing this. And I wonder in this case if this policy could be enforced as a form or under the provisions of the state of emergency. I really would hope not, because I think that would be going in the wrong direction. But I wonder. And other than that, how our system runs usually, I would think very likely such a decision may need support in the parliament and may need opposition support if it has to reach to being at a legal level and for the police to be able to enforce it. I'm not sure. I'm wondering. Any of you out there know for sure exactly how this can be done? Please explain to me, and probably you can explain to the Commissioner of Police afterwards, because he doesn't seem to know either. But what I'm sure he does know is that quite a few people after his throat, figuratively. Here, we are not speaking about literal violence, especially against our esteemed Commissioner of Police. But he is in some trouble. Top cop on a cliff. Griffith in a very precarious position. The future of Guy Griffith hangs in the balance. When Griffith left on vacation yesterday, he was acting as police commissioner. The Express understands that McDonald Jacob has been appointed to act as commissioner during Griffith's absence. Question what happens after that, given the fact that Griffith's 3-year contract has expired and he was acting when he took vacation leave. A Police Service Commission source said it is the conundrum to put it mildly, while conceding that Griffith's position is very precarious. Now, this seems to be like one weird technicality. The fact that he left for leave while his contract was up. So he was acting as commissioner and he left on leave, and now there's a new acting commissioner. And why would the job of acting commissioner be held for an acting commissioner while he goes on leave? I could understand the the weird conundrum that could make, but I think if it is an issue, it's because someone wants to make it an issue. Because I'm not sure that members of the public would be up in arms that the acting commissioner went on vacation and then came back and resumed his post as the acting commissioner. In the first place, I find we have too many actors in Trinidad and Tobago for quite too long. So many positions in our government service are acting. Someone explain to me, why is that necessary? Why is it that our bureaucracy must be so slow that in order for someone to be confirmed, they can go through an entire career in a position acting, and probably on the year they retire, they will be confirmed in the position? That does not add up to me. But that's another topic. Griffith himself is under various angles of trouble. That is one where it seems like some people are trying to bump him off before he even returns to the position of acting commissioner. And now there's an investigation being launched while he is in the process of being evaluated to be a commissioner for another term. To talk about our bureaucracy is tedious. The police commissioner, first of all, the police commissioner is appointed by the Police Service Commission. That is to have a buffer between the police commissioner and the politicians. So you don't want the politicians directly appointing the police commissioner, because you'd hope that those who enforce the law would not have those who are writing the law as being above the law. There's no one above the law, so you want that buffer in between the politicians and the police. So you have the Police Service Commission. Now, the strange thing about all of that is the politicians choose the Police Service Commission anyway. So we're acting like there isn't political influence in it, and we're mama-guying each other. We know there is political influence in the entire process, and I believe even after the Police Service Commission chooses the commissioner, it still has to be assented to by the parliament. The politicians have to agree on it. So there's a lot of politics to the appointment of this job. But what is happening right now is there was a complaint lodged, I believe, with the Prime Minister. And the Prime Minister took the complaint and carried it over to the Police Service Commission and gave it to them for them to launch an investigation. And they did. They hired a retired justice, and he is now going to be paid handsomely, I'm sure, to write a paper that may be this thick, that very few recommendations would be taken from. That's usually what goes on with many of that style of investigations, but that's what's going to happen now. An investigation is being done. But the investigation seems suspicious because there isn't an actual charge against the commissioner. So how are you investigating him? But the grounds of the investigation is on the grounds of it being tied to the recruitment process. Probe tied to recruitment process, explaining the context in which an investigation managed by retired Justice John and initiated by the Police Service Commission is being conducted. The commission source said this independent investigation is tied to the recruitment process for a commissioner of police. Our power comes from the Constitution. We recruit and select as well as monitor and evaluate the commissioner. So their power isn't really to investigate police officers, but they have power to select the commissioner. And through that bit of power, they can now launch an investigation in the selection process. Because, as I believe it was one of our opposition members, he pointed out that the real trail for an investigation like this should have started at the police complaint authority. That's who is authorized to investigate the police. And he pointed this out. I believe that was Munilal. He pointed out that the Prime Minister, when he got this piece of information, should have carried it to the police complaints authority. And I understand that. That is the proper procedure. You see, you get a complaint about a police, that's where you carry it. But from the Prime Minister's point of view, I could understand the excuse where he would say that he is part of the process of selecting the police commissioner, and it would be dereliction of duty to have something that seems to suggest that this commissioner may not be viable, and you don't carry it to the selection committee. So I understand that. But the question in all of this, and the question that I believe none of us would know unless you have more information than many of us, and then you could probably be a whistleblower, get some information out there. But what we may never know is exactly how genuine some of these reasons are. And if it's genuinely out of care for not wanting to hire the wrong person, or if it's because Top G, as he's fondly known by many, if it's because he has aggravated some of the wrong people and a lot of people want to see the back of him. I would not doubt that, because we know that he is a person that can get on the wrong side of other people. But we'll see how it all goes. Personally, he isn't my favorite person on earth. But when in processes like this, it's a matter of who the options are. If the options are Gary Griffith and a bureaucratic police officer who just moved through the ranks because of time spent in the police service, and they're just there because they think it's their turn to reach this position, and they don't really have a vision. Say what you want about the guy, it's clear that he is trying to have a certain vision and a certain direction to carry the police service. Even if it's the wrong direction, at least you could point at the direction and see, okay, that's the wrong direction. Because you could see it's going in a direction. Many of those bureaucratic just spend time and feel it's their turn. I feel like they may not have that edge. What do you think? Drop a comment, tell me what you think. That's all I have for now. I hope you were entertained or informed, and I will see you again tomorrow for the next video.
Feel the music rising with the time.